This video will show you how to count and beam in compound meter. Just to remind you, compound meter is when the beats are what we call strawberry beats. That is, rather than 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and it's strawberry, 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 the beats subdivide into 3. You will know that a time signature shows compound meter if the top number is 6, 9, or 12. So 6, 9, and 12 are sort of special numbers that are telling us that a time signature is compound meter. So remember those numbers. Let's take a look at an example. Suppose we have 6, 8. 6, 8, the top number is 6, and again, that's one of those special numbers. And when that is the case, that number is showing us not the number of tactus or beats per measure. Instead, it's showing us the number of subdivisions. In order to figure out the number of beats per measure, you have to divide this number by 3. And this bottom number is showing you the duration not of the primary beat, that is the tactus. Instead, it's showing you the duration of the subdivision. So in order to figure out the duration of the tactus, you take this duration. So here again, you imagine that this is a fraction with a 1 at the top. In other words, 1/8. That's an eighth note. And then you multiply it by 3 to get the duration of the tactus. So the system for notating compound meter is a little weird and it's a little different, but it's just something you have to know. And the thing to remember is that you do these steps when you see one of these 3 special numbers on top, 6, 9, or 12. So let's figure out the number of beats per measure. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So there are 2 beats per measure. In other words, the beats group into 2. And then the duration of a beat is 3/16 notes. I'm sorry, let me say that again, is 3/8 notes. That's the duration of 1 beat. And so now here's a question. Is there some note or some rhythm we can write that is the same duration as 3/8 notes? The answer is yes. That is a dotted quarter. A dotted quarter is the same as 3/8 notes. So here in 6/8, our tactus is dotted quarter, dotted quarter. And then the division of that tactus is 3/8 notes. All right. And here are our, this is beat 1, this is beat 2. So we would count this 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and, or strawberry, 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 like so. Suppose we have 9/4. Let's figure out how many beats there are per measure and the duration of the tactus. So again, in order to figure out the first things first, that top number is 9. That is one of our special numbers, which is telling us that this is compound meter. And to determine the number of beats per measure, we divide 9 by 3, or 9 divided by 3. So there are 3 beats per measure. And to determine the duration of the tactus, that is to determine the duration of the primary beat, we look at this bottom number. First we pretend it's like 1 over that number, that's a quarter. 1/4 is a fourth, which is the same thing as a quarter. And then we multiply that number by 3 to get the duration of the tactus. So 3/4 are the same thing as a dotted half. And so that means our tactus is going to be a dotted half note. And there will be 3 of them every measure. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. And then the division will be into quarter notes. And you would count this as 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and like so. Next, let's learn how to beam in compound meter. The rule for beaming in compound meter is the same as in simple meter. And the rule is notes that make up one tactus should be beamed together. Let's take this example in 6/16. So first things first, we need to figure out what the tactus is and what the duration of the tactus is. That 6 is one of those special compound meter numbers, so that we know in order to determine the number of tactus beats, we take this number and divide by 3, and we get 2 beats per measure, or 2 tactuses per measure. Next, we need to determine the duration of the tactus. To do that, we look at the bottom number and pretend it's 1 over that number. That's 1 over 16, which is a 16th. Here's how we write a 16th note. And then we multiply that by 3. And that gives us a tactus that lasts for 3 16th notes. Another way to write 3 16th notes together, or a single note that has the same duration as 3 16ths, is a dotted eighth. So the tactus in 6/16 is an eighth with a dot. Let's group these notes. So I'll use purple. Okay. So we need to group every 3 16th notes, or in other words, every dotted eighth, and each of those will be 1 beat. So here we have 1, 2, 3 16th notes. That is our first beat. And then here we have an 8th note and a 16th note. The 8th note and 16th note together also make up 1 dotted 16th, because an 8th is 2 16ths, 1 more 16th is 3. That is our second beat. So if we're going to rewrite this, we want to beam together these 3 notes here, and then these 2 notes here. I'll show you how to do that. So let me rewrite this down here. I'll write my time signature, 6/16. And then I'm going to rewrite these 3 16th notes, but beam them all together. So I'll first just write the note heads. I'll make nice little ovals here. They look kind of like coffee beans, maybe. And then I'll draw my 3 stems. And then for the 16th notes, the 16th note has 2 flags, which means it should have 2 beams, like this. Those are my 3 16th notes. Next, I'm going to beam together these notes. So we have an 8th and a 16th. Let me show you how to do that. I'll draw the 2 note heads. Okay, I'll draw the beams here. And then the stems. First, this is an 8th note, so that gets 1 beam like that. And then to show the 16th note, I just draw a tiny little beam like that. And that little beam is showing that this note right here is the 16th note, and this one is an 8th note. In other words, if you have a short little beam, it only applies to the note that's right below it. Okay? Sorry, I kind of messed that up there. All right. So that is how you notate that rhythm with the correct beaming. And this will be 1 and 2, or ya da 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 da, strawberry strawberry, like that. That is how you beam in compound meter. Hope to talk to you.